This all happens about 3,200 years ago. Back then, there was no country called Iran, and there was no country called Greece either. But if you look at a map today, picture Western Turkey, right on the coast of the Aegean Sea. That's where a wealthy, fully independent kingdom called Troy sat. It controlled trade routes between the Aegean and the Black Sea, which made it rich, and its location made it strategically important too. Across that same sea, you had a cluster of kingdoms we'd now group together and call Greece, but it wasn't one country. It was 29 separate kingdoms, each with its own army, its own king, but sharing a very similar culture and language. Mycenae was the strongest of them, sitting roughly in the center, the wealthiest and most populated. Around it were other serious powers: Pylos, Argos, Sparta, Athens, and a long list of smaller kingdoms besides. Keeping peace between that many independent, armed kingdoms wasn't easy. So over time, a tradition developed, a kind of unwritten code, where kings would swear defensive oaths to each other, and mostly actually stick to them. Before we get further into this, if you're finding this interesting so far, go ahead and hit subscribe, drop a comment, and give this video a like. It genuinely helps the channel keep making more of these. All right, back to the story, because this is where things get complicated. The whole thing starts with one woman, Helen, from the royal family of Sparta, said to be the most beautiful woman in the region. When it comes time for her to marry, practically every king in the area shows up to court her. That creates a real problem. Whoever her father picks, everyone who didn't get chosen might feel insulted enough to attack. And this isn't really about Helen's beauty anymore at that point. It's about the fact that marrying her means allying with one of the most powerful royal families around.
This is where Odysseus enters the story. He's the king of a small, rocky island called Ithaca. He's also one of Helen's suitors, technically, but he knows he doesn't stand a real chance. He doesn't have the wealth or the army the other kings have. What he does have is a sharp mind. So he goes to Helen's father with an idea. Before anyone is chosen, make every suitor swear an oath first. Whoever gets picked, everyone else has to accept it. And if anyone ever tries to break that marriage apart, all the other suitors are obligated to unite and stop them. This later becomes known as the Oath of Tyndareus. Everyone agrees to it. And just like that, a war gets avoided, at least for now.
Helen's father ends up giving her to Menelaus, brother of the king of Mycenae, Agamemnon. That single marriage links the two most powerful kingdoms in the region together. Odysseus, for his part, didn't offer that idea out of pure kindness. Right then and there, he asks for something in return. Instead of Helen, he wants to marry her cousin, Penelope. With one clever move, Odysseus secures a marriage into a powerful family too, without having any idea that the very oath he just invented is about to start the biggest war of the era. Sometime later, at a gathering, Helen runs off with a prince from Troy, or possibly gets taken, depending on which version of the story you're reading. Either way, she ends up in Troy. Menelaus, her husband, immediately goes to his brother Agamemnon for help activating that oath. On his own, Menelaus doesn't have enough power to pull all those kingdoms together, but with Agamemnon backing him, all 29 kingdoms unite after generations of independence to sail against Troy. According to the old accounts, the full combined fleet came out to more than 1,000 ships. Agamemnon alone sent 100. Achilles, the greatest warrior of that era, brought 50. Odysseus showed up with just 12 from Ithaca. But Odysseus, unlike almost everyone else, had zero interest in going to this war. He'd just become a father. His son, Telemachus, was still a newborn. So to dodge the draft, he pretended to have gone completely insane, yoking an ox and a donkey together to the same plow and pretending to plant salt into the beach sand like it made perfect sense. The men sent to fetch him almost believed it. Almost. One of them, a commander named Palamedes, placed Odysseus' own infant son directly in the plow's path. Odysseus swerved to avoid him instantly, which proved he was completely sane. The man who invented the oath was now trapped by it. The war lasted 10 years. Thousands of soldiers died on both sides, including some of the greatest fighters either side had. And through all of it, the gods weren't neutral bystanders. 12 major Olympian gods were involved in basically everything, not just the battles, everything. They got jealous, held grudges, played favorites. Hera and Athena backed the Greeks because of an old grudge going back to a beauty contest where a Trojan prince named Paris chose Aphrodite's bribe over theirs, promising him the most beautiful woman in the world, which, unfortunately for everyone, turned out to be Helen. Aphrodite and the god of war backed Troy. Apollo backed Troy too, since the Greeks had disrespected one of his temples. Poseidon, god of the sea, sided with the Greeks, holding an old grudge of his own against Troy, since he'd personally built Troy's walls once, and the Trojans had never paid him properly for the work. Eventually, it's Athena, goddess of wisdom, who comes up with the idea that actually ends the war. Build a wooden horse. Hide your best commanders inside it, including Odysseus himself, since it was his plan. The Trojans drag the horse inside their own walls as a supposed peace offering. That night, the hidden soldiers climb out and open the gates from the inside. 10 years of siege ended in a single night with a wooden trick. But winning the war wasn't the end of the story. After Troy falls, the Greek soldiers commit every atrocity you can imagine, looting temples, killing prisoners against the gods' explicit wishes. That behavior makes the gods furious, and that fury turns the journey home into a nightmare for almost every single commander. Many arrive home late, many die along the way, many just disappear entirely. Odysseus becomes one of those lost men. He's crossing the Aegean, nearly home, close enough to pass Cape Malea near Sparta, when a 9-day storm blows him completely off course, out of the Aegean entirely, into a totally different part of the Mediterranean. Remember, this is the Bronze Age. No compass, no accurate maps, no way to predict weather. Ships mostly hugged the coastline, and one bad storm could throw you hundreds of kilometers off course with no way to correct it. Meanwhile, back home, things aren't calm either. 10 years pass with no word from Odysseus. No body, no ship flying his colors. A power vacuum opens up, and more than 100 suitors move into his house, insisting Penelope choose a new husband. But Penelope comes from Sparta's royal family, so nobody can just push her aside easily. The only real path to power is marrying her directly. And Penelope, partly out of loyalty to Odysseus, partly to protect her son, has to stall for as long as possible. Telemachus is only 10. The older he gets, the bigger a threat he becomes to whoever eventually marries his mother. The suitors aren't all the same either. One, Antinous, is violent and dangerous, has basically appointed himself their leader, and is actively plotting to kill Telemachus outright. Another is smooth-talking, pretending to care about Telemachus just to win Penelope's trust. Another is more patient, convinced that if he's just given enough time, Penelope will eventually give in. All of that political tension is already boiling, right as Odysseus is finally forced to begin his own journey home, alongside men who fought loyally beside him for a decade, but who are also, after everything they've been through, not quite who they used to be.
This kind of story has a name, a hero's journey, where the main character goes through such a long, dangerous path to get home that by the time he arrives, he's genuinely a different person than the one who left. When Odysseus sets out from Troy, he's a winner, technically, but he's also arrogant. And that's really what separates this story from the war that came before it. The war was a story about victory. This next part is a story about what pride actually costs you. Every stop on this journey becomes a test of restraint, of patience, of resisting easy comfort. And Odysseus has to pass every single one of them.
Even the gods he runs into along the way aren't perfectly fair or trustworthy. They lie, they cause harm, they act on very human impulses. Somewhere in this journey, Odysseus has to learn what kind of man actually deserves to make it home. His one real advantage the whole way through is that Athena never stops being on his side.